What's going on, everybody? I'm Paul, and this is FitSpaz Recovery. I'm here to help you get healthy, stay fit, and also remain sober. Woo! Yeah, I don't think it has quite that much popularity, you know. Most people like to enjoy the heck out of themselves. Whatever it is. Woo! What a beginning, anyway. Let me tell you, I just got home this evening from a Marijuana Anonymous meeting, and I will start some sad music. Although it's not going to be sad stuff. It's just going to be pretty stuff to entertain you, okay? So yeah, like I was saying, I got home from a Marijuana Anonymous meeting just a few minutes ago. I'm glad I went, as usual. I hear a lot of things from a lot of people that I identify with and whatnot, and I'm not going to share or divulge anything anyone else said. Just to say that when I was getting high all the time, I used to have a tough time traveling anywhere. It doesn't matter where it was, because the first question at the forefront of my mind was, well, is there going to be weed wherever I'm going? Am I going to arrive there and have it? Because if not, it's a recipe in my mind for total stress, and I hate that feeling. So like, you could tell me, oh, you want a free trip to New York with an all-expense vacation paid for, the honeymoon suite at this luxurious hotel right by Central Park, and I'd be like, is there gonna be weed? Yeah, well, no thank you then, I don't want to go. And I'm so relieved. This is one of the reasons I'm relieved at this stage in my life, being sober, is because last year I traveled, I think it was to 4 different places on by airplane, and I didn't have that worry ahead of time. I didn't think, am I going to arrive somewhere without marijuana? But the anxiousness is palpable. I've had that worry a lot going to Italy, and of course I can find hashish there, but a lot of places when you don't know anybody, you're just like freaking out. You don't know what you're gonna do. And last time I actually traveled on an airplane with marijuana. Yes, I did that a very long time ago. In 2001, during the week of September 11th, when the SHIT hit the fan, I traveled to California because I wanted to see if I wanted to live there. And I was like, of course, I'm bringing marijuana. I'm rebellious Paul. I'm a wild man. And so I stuck some marijuana in a plastic bag, and I literally stapled it to my underwear. And as I'm walking out to the car with my dad, who was taking me to the airport at the time, I'm like, oh my, the staples are going to set off the metal detector. And I got freaked out because of that. So I ran back in the house, and I removed the staples, and then I redid my smuggling job in my underpants with Scotch tape, and it worked. I got through security. But crazy thing is, that's the week everything changed, right? And so I was so freaked out after 9/11, especially, you know, security went ape over the top bananas, and I do think people should be able to travel with it, like, give me a break. But I was so freaked out that I never once ever dared try to travel with it again. I knew people with the medical card when I was working with marijuana media in the marijuana industry. They would actually fly all the time with it, and I'm like, how do they do this? I even asked lawyers. I'm like, excuse me, you know, so-and-so there, how does he travel with marijuana? Because of course I wanted in on this. And the lawyers, I just remember them going, I don't know. They get this bewildered look on their face, like they can't believe it. And of course, you know, it's kind of a funny story I told about traveling with marijuana, but would the consequences have been worth it if I had gotten caught with that? Hell no. It would have been a nightmare. Can you imagine? Because federal law would have applied, and I don't know how bad it is. I think it's overboard. I think it's unnecessary, but the point I'll get back to is one of the reasons I'm so glad to be sober at this stage in my life is because I can travel anywhere unfettered, and I'm not feeling that anxiousness and that frustration of arriving somewhere and not knowing someone and wanting to get high. Another time, I think it was 2006 or 2007, I traveled to somewhere else in California, for the what was it? It was originally the podcasting expo, and then it became the new media expo. And I had an exceptional time. But I arrived there and I didn't have marijuana, so I was like, oh my god. And I was at this place in the hotel where I was staying. I think it was DoubleTree, and someone working behind the counter there at some. It was kind of like their version of Starbucks or something. I don't remember what I was getting. Somehow I asked this girl, "Can you get me some marijuana?" And sure enough, she said, "Give me your number. I'll contact you." And she did, and I got some, and it made the trip a whole lot more fun. And fun because I was in the throes of smoking before I left home, and I was like, oh my God, I need this. I want this. I need it bad. But what a pleasure it is to be able to have fun and appreciate things with that demon put to sleep. And I consider the demon not dead in me. You never know what's going to happen in life. And I never say, this is something else I said tonight when I was in the meeting. I never say, oh, I'm never going to smoke marijuana again, because you never know the situation you find yourself in. And all it takes is a moment to fall off of that wagon. And I don't want to fall off the wagon. And so the point I was making in the meeting was that I have to be extra special careful and disciplined about the situations that I allow myself to be in. Case in point, I have a friend on Facebook who's always posting pictures of his smoking gear, his bong and his pipes and his weed and his dab rig or whatever you call it. And so today he had a picture of an iced bong with his container of marijuana right beside it, and the bowl was loaded up and green and ready to blaze, right? And so I'm looking at it thinking to myself, if I were sitting there with him, the temptation would be really great just to hit off that bong, because it looks like, as far as I'm concerned, it's like seeing a beautiful naked woman. You're a man and you're like, oh, it's like the sirens singing and you can't say no to it. So the control to some extent that I do have is the situation I put myself in, and you know, there's a big fat alarm if I put myself in that situation. It's why I can't go to certain kinds of parties. It's why a few weeks ago when my friend had a party, I took a while to RSVP to it, and I even asked her, are there going to be people smoking there? And I think there were, but because of the nature of the mixed crowd, they were going out and very privately doing that. And so, but I did smell it on one person, I believe, when I was there. Even still, I just have to proceed with caution. And I wasn't drinking that night, which helps, because if I had several drinks to deal with the evening and I would have had fun, but like, then if I smoke, I just would have been overboard and people would have been like, oh, he's the most wasted guy here. I didn't want to be that guy. But that's pretty much all I said there, really. But what a relief it is not smoking. Things like being able to drive somewhere and not worry if I get pulled over that there's any issue. Only if there were a corrupt cop planting something on me would I have a problem. But if I get pulled over, I'm not going to be a big a-hole anyway. I'm going to try and respect my way through the situation, and that usually does it. By the way, some advice that's a little off the point of staying sober from me is, if you have an interaction with a cop, your whole thing should be stay calm, be respectful, and do everything you can to get yourself out of that situation. I've known people, and I was a little bit like this when I was way, way younger, who mouth off to cops and they're rude. And so I'm giving you some valuable advice here and right now that you should listen to. By all means, if you get pulled over, be polite, because no matter what happens, if you're a butthead to that cop and you get arrested, or if anything bad happens, they have the power and you will invariably be running uphill to try and solve your problems instead of downhill. And by the way, the whole goal should be like diplomacy, politeness, and when you're not smoking, like I was saying, and when you're not at risk of getting in trouble because of something you did, like big trouble, like, okay, you get a speeding ticket, big deal. I could get one of those now. But getting pulled over, they won't smell it on me. They won't find it on me. And I'll tell you another worry I have. It's that since I used to have the medical card, I just have this feeling in their little computer they're going to have me flagged as oh, this guy used to have the medical card, so he has it. And so even though I haven't done it, I bet you anything that history is still there and they can like reference it and say, hey, Mr. Serini. And that's exactly how they are. They're like, sorry. I know there are good cops out there. I'm just being like that. And they see me on here if they watch this and they're like, I'm going to pull you over, Buster. No, thank you. I'm just joking around, all right? What do we do now? Entering in next segment of the show. All right, let me tell you something. I've been, almost every show I've been proceeding onward to the next step, onward to the next step. And the reason I haven't gone on to step 11, and the last time I didn't address step 11, was because I was feeling nervous about it, believe it or not. And you're like, oh, why? And then I thought, you know what, I should at least come on and try and go through it and explain why I feel nervous about it. So let me just read it to you really quick. Step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. Okay, so here's the bottom line. Because there's always a disagreement between all kinds of different people from different walks of life about what God means, what God is, I was afraid to address this because I don't want to offend anybody, and at the same time, I have my own personal ideas of God, and I don't really feel the need or desire to proselytize my beliefs, and I also don't want to offend others. So I was afraid of approaching this for fear of, I don't know, just discomfort about expressing my own beliefs, and also I'm not wanting to step on the belief systems of others. And the bottom line is, my belief in God doesn't have as much to do with a biblical background as it does just my philosophical thoughts about the infinite universe, if you know what I mean. I've talked about this a little in a much earlier episode about how we can't, as finite human beings, underestimate the potential of infinity to manifest something way beyond our understanding. I don't even think human words are adequate to describe what the heck I'm talking about, because we're talking about something so above and beyond people. And here's something I don't like to say, but I'll say it because it's philosophical and I think you'll get a better picture of what I'm saying. It's that I don't even like the notion that human beings are made in God's image or something like that, because to me that's a narcissistic statement, because once again, we're just one form of life in an infinite universe, and it's presumptuous and pretentious in my view to say like God is like a man in heaven or God is a human being in heaven. But in my view, God is more like in everything. God is reflected in everything. We're only just one little interesting and very amazing, profound part of all that God is, okay? And I know I'm reflecting some philosophers who've talked about it in the past, and that's not really what I want to talk about. For the sake of this, sort of like I said in earlier steps, it's just important that your view of God or your higher power is something that's empowering you and enabling you to better deal with being sober and living life on life's terms as a sober person. So let's just read, and maybe I can learn something, because here's a step I wasn't going on to because I struggle more with it. When it says to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us being determinism, like God has a destiny determined for us. I don't know. I have doubts about that. And I don't think everything is predetermined like this. So that statement, I'm just like, okay, so here's in these steps, I have to take from it what enables me and empowers me. And I have to just kind of forget about what I may or may not agree with that. But, I think of destiny in terms of very specifically certain people I've met throughout my life. I consider my daughter to be destiny, but as far as going beyond that, me smoking marijuana, I just I don't know. I have doubts. So, but let me just continue rather than just, expressing my philosophical doubts about things. Let me clear my throat though first. So much better. Yes, my friends. Step 11 is about spiritual awareness. Okay, so far so good. For many of us, our addiction to marijuana came as we sought a greater reality or even a mystical experience through the drug. For some, our early highs were almost spiritual in nature, seeming to take us beyond ourselves into a state of expanded consciousness. Yes, absolutely. As we progressed in our addiction and turned more often to the drug as an escape from ordinary reality, it lost its ability to satisfy our needs. Instead of helping us feel better, it started to make us feel worse. And I think as I'm reading this, yes, I am identifying with everything they say in that I have been high and had this mystical feeling, this mysterious, amazing mystical feeling about something, and but it's like it's less fun, and you get that feeling, you lose that feeling the more and more you do it, the more you're like chasing the dragon, the more the original high that you got is unattainable. I think to maintain that feeling, you have to hardly ever do it so that you have like no tolerance. And that's not an argument to do it. My point is just that the higher we are, the more frequently, the less we're going to have those satisfying experiences from the drug. Many addicts feel an aching emptiness within, a hole deep inside ourselves. Yes, I feel that when I'm getting high. I have too often, all the time. I wake up in the morning with a feeling of morbidity, and it's just not good. So a hole deep inside ourselves, which we tried to plug by using marijuana. Some people described this hole as God-shaped, since the only way we can truly fill it is to open ourselves to the presence of a higher power. By continuing to live the steps and practice spiritual principles, we remove the barriers in our lives that have kept us from building a relationship with a higher power. We can now focus on nurturing and improving that relationship. When we regularly seek such expansion through prayer and meditation, rather than marijuana use, we find that we are increasingly fulfilled. The experience grows more powerful, more real, and more beneficial. We seek and we find. It seems that the old saying is true. For each step we take towards God, God takes 1,000 steps towards us. That last piece, I think, is subjective. If you feel that, I think that's fabulous. Like, don't let me argue against that. If it works for you, I'm more than happy to accept it in your world. And I hope, whatever differs with me in my belief system, I hope others can accept what I'm saying too, that we may not see things eye to eye, but I hope you at least appreciate that even if you have a differing belief, I do want you to be happy and fundamentally at peace, however you find it. And neither one of us may be wrong. That's the beauty part. I think as long as we're trying to be good people, then, that matters a lot. That goes a long way. Many of us came to Marijuana Anonymous with little or no relationship to a higher power, and without any idea of how to create that contact or build that relationship, as the 11th step suggests we do. Some of us are atheists or agnostics, alienated from God by past experiences with religion, or by those who use their beliefs in self-serving ways. Atheists and agnostics. I think it's much more intelligent to be an agnostic than an atheist, because an atheist is claiming, dagnabbit, I know something, and this is the truth. And you don't know, because you're only a finite human being, as I've said. And that's my whole argument against atheism, is why agnosticism is the only answer. Or no, what I mean is it's a better answer than being an atheist. Because you're allowing for the possibility, you're open to the possibility. And so it's a much lighter reality, I think, allowing for that possibility. And it does give me comfort more than the thought of being an atheist. Look, when I was in my young 20s, I would describe myself as an atheist. And it's a cold reality, thinking there's no meaning to any of all of this. But at least when you're open enough to say, I don't know, and you have an agnostic view, that no matter how minuscule that seems, that's enough to call hope. That is, and then like, is there hope with the atheist view? Is my point. And still, there could be this debate between us. Well, what does it mean to be God? I'm still going back to what works for me. Whatever it is for you, as long as it's good and empowering, I don't care much how your perspective differs, as long as you're fundamentally accepting, you have common sense of acceptance of things, because of course there's a lot of bad in the world we can't accept, whether it's murder, rape, or whatever, violence, war, you know, so so I'm just saying, that's why I say common sense acceptance, because we can't just blindly be, I accept everything, every difference of everyone else. As I once heard a real jackass say, who actually said something wise, he said, sometimes it's time to judge. And I'm not going to tell you who the Jack ASS was, but he is, and he still is, and yet sometimes this talented little Jack ASS has words of wisdom. And I would share with you who this is, except I'm mortified because he has legions of people who would, like, cause me headaches. Yeah. Yeah, never mind who it is. Some people might think, is it me? Trust me, it's from like 2004, 2005-ish. And he's still out there being a mean ASS. And like someday his poo-poo's gonna hit the fan too. I just know it. So this is interesting. I'm gonna stop reading right there with that one. It's okay. I don't know if with respect to tying that into drug use, I think I was talking more philosophically about the existence of God. But I did want to explain to you guys why I've got some discomfort approaching that topic on this step, because I think my view of God is a little different, and I'm not saying it's better. This is not judging anyone else. I mean, I know people with traditional Christian faith, and I'm like, what a wonderful person this is. And I have a lot of Christian values I was raised with, and I'm not ashamed of, living by these Christian values. I would like people, whatever their faith is, to really be deep-minded thinkers, kind to other people, and patient, fair. And, but this gets into a whole bunch of relative things we shouldn't even talk about. Gosh, just 1 second ago, I had the perfect bridge to just now the new topic coming into my head is listening to some guys online doing a podcast talking about being weed sober, and how a lot of people who are alcoholics and Alcoholics Anonymous are like weed sober. And I think that's a whole misnomer, because when I think of how we just wax the brain, especially when you have no tolerance, it's like amazing how it changes your state of mind. So when you say weed sober, it's like, dude, I got news for you. You're not sober. You're high as a kite, and you want to be like saying that you're weed sober. However, let me clarify something and move into something else briefly before I wrap this up. It's about Alcoholics Anonymous. And, if you are, for instance, a really bad alcoholic, my heart goes out to you just like it would for anybody who's suffering from an addiction and this kind of health problem. And my issue with Alcoholics Anonymous, I've talked about on here a little bit before. And it's sort of like a lot of people in there, they do use marijuana as a form of maintenance to deal with their alcoholism. And in my book, compared to the depravity of alcoholism, it's like, dude, if that works for you to keep you from being a falling over drunk, then by all means, do that. But my problem is, I have gone to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, I think 2 or 3 times. On 2 or 3 occasions I went. And I've also heard stories from others. And if you bring up like you have a problem with anything else, they're like, you don't belong here. You need to go over there in that group. And it's like, oh, wow, really? Depraved alcoholic is telling me that I can't be here. I mean, I know what alcohol does in the lexicon, the nexus, the puzzle of my own addiction issues. And so for anyone to judge me there that I don't do alcohol because I know it causes a certain set of problems with me. But it's not like I'm sitting here, oh, dude, I gotta have a drink. And if I have a drink, it's a disaster. I may not behave 100% when I'm drunk, but I'm not the worst guy in the world, but I know that it's gonna make me want to smoke. And you would think that's enough. If I say that smoking causes me this kind of problem, why should I just section off my problems going to something like that? What I'm saying is Alcoholics Anonymous needs to have some policies like, hey, if a pot smoker wants to come here and it helps them, nobody here has a right to have a view about that situation, their problem. You want to go outside and get high, that's your business. But you shouldn't be allowed to be in here as a hypocrite judging someone for that kind of problem. When you yourself are an alcoholic, when you have that problem, how can you judge somebody else's problem? And so, that's why I like Marijuana Anonymous. And that's why I want to say to people, go there, because whatever type of addiction you have, nobody's going to like thumb their nose at you and be like, huh, you don't belong here. And yet you might find people who identify more in NA than MA, Marijuana Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and you might find more people identifying with your alcohol problem in Alcoholics Anonymous. Whatever works for you, that's what you should do. But by all means, I just think, I was told when I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know what my issues are with alcohol. It's not that I'm dying to have a drink and I can't handle it and I have to drink and drink. It's the other things it makes me do. It's also that when I drink, I know that I recognize problems with my mood, not just the day after, but 4 days later, when a sledgehammer feels like it hits my frontal lobe and I'm in a wicked dark mood. I actually had someone tell me at Alcoholics Anonymous, yeah, I don't think you're an alcoholic. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Do I not fit your subjective standard for what that means? Like, I guess I didn't sufficiently explain my problems with alcohol. And I didn't talk about fitness at all in this episode. I will. But yeah, just my message is not to be like, you buttheads. It's that, please, people, try and recognize the vast diversity of the situation with different people and be a little more open-minded to someone who comes there with a different kind of problem. When I say I smoke weed every day and I devolve into being in a very bad, angry, morbid mood, that should be enough for you to say, okay, I relate it to how alcohol made me feel, and so I can deal with that. You're here trying to get help with that, and I can deal with that. But people are like, oh, they put marijuana up on this pedestal. It's so great. It's so wonderful. It doesn't cause any problems. I hear people give it the most excessive praise. And it's like, okay, dude, I get it. You love it. You love it. Fine. But that doesn't mean everybody else has the same experience with it. And there's this whole irony of my history, formerly doing a radio show called Marijuana Radio that a lot of people listen to, where I interviewed a lot of important people and so forth. It just was very interesting. So what I'm really saying is just be open-minded about people and their problems and be supportive and help them, because if you're all about helping your fellow alcoholic, you should be all about helping anybody who says they have a problem with anything. And you're in denial if you're using marijuana to deal with your alcohol problem. Give me a break. You're not sober. You're not a sober person. I think a chip is something that should be deserved, not from just being off the one drug, but being clean, being sober, maybe even not having cigarettes, because those are so insane, whatever the hell they are, legal or not. Very quickly at the end, then I got to wrap it up because I'm running long on time. Today I had a great workout. I did something called Max Hammer Strength, and good Lord, it kicked my butt. I think there were like 15 separate exercises. You do about a minute of an exercise without weight, and then you're like, oh, minute long, whew, and then you do 8 reps of some kind of weightlifting of like max heavy weight. And so it was really cool. I like it. I have a lot of backwash right now because I had a wild, awesome dinner with an amazing dessert. But what a great workout. I want to point to fitness again as a way you can empower yourself to take control of something that makes you feel good, to realize that you look better, you feel better, you heal your body. And so I want people to get into it. And if you're like, dude, I don't know what to do, you can be like, hey, Paul, show me something to do. You can email me messages to paul@fitspaz.com. And of course, this is fitspaz.com. You can learn more about this show by going to that website. You can follow me on social media. This is available as a video on YouTube, and it is also available as a podcast in iTunes. All that stuff you can find by going to the website fitspaz.com. And anybody out there, I'm asking you, if you think that I'm adding some value, or I have some value and I'm offering some value to you, I would just appreciate it if you have friends with problems and they might like my particular approach. Share this with people, you know what I mean? Let's get involved in making each other's lives better. And whole discussion at the meeting tonight had to do with, there's a lot of stuff we can do in terms of activity to feel better and to have fun. And you know, when you're stuck in that loop of getting high all the time on whatever your drug is, you have this idea that, oh, this is impossible. This is impossible. It's not impossible. You've got to trust me and you've got to take the leap. And I realize it's just, the mind is like, fear, fear, fear. I know the fear because I experienced it so many times. And once you're there, it's like, hey, this is nice. And my life can even be better, you know? What I've realized through fitness, through other things I've been learning throughout the past year, developing my mind and my spirit through meditation, relaxation, focus, patience, praying, you can have such a higher quality of life. You may not even realize it, but it is possible. It just takes a little bit of willingness every day, and you have to start somewhere. And it's going to sting at first. But then you get over that, and suddenly the fog lifts, and you feel lighter and sweeter and more kind and less self-centered. I hate that feeling of self-centeredness, feeling like the world is all about me. And I recognize it in myself, and I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? And that's self-centeredness. I was just listening to this great song I recorded on the way home a few years ago, and I'm like, I must not forget that I am a genius. And then I'm like, that's so arrogant, dude. At least I recognize it. But I do think I have an excellent gift for songwriting. That's my gift. It's a blessing, okay? So let me approach it. I'm not so great. It's just a blessing that I was able to develop that skill. And that's another one of those things I reference in my life where I'm like, heck yeah, I did it. I put the work and effort into this stuff, and it pays off, man. It pays off. That's what I want to say. I want to finish up by saying thank you to Kevin MacLeod for providing the lovely backdrop music for this, and I'll probably switch it up once in a while. I want to say thank you to anyone who's actually listening and actually appreciates this also. I will catch up to you guys again one more time between now and Saturday, I think, at some point. But take it easy, and everybody have a wonderful day. It's not too late, people. You've got to do it.